I'm so excited to be discussing women and money matters. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that it would be a really great idea to speak to you because you seem to be an authority on savings and just women's matters when it comes to money and handling money, and you're so wise. So my first question to you is Savings Month. It was themed on resilience. Why was that?
So generally, Georgina, for Savings Month, we bring out, the statistics that just show what a nation of non-savers we are, how indebted we are, and kind of remind people why it's important to inculcate this culture of savings. And for this year, despite the lockdown, we felt that we needed to do something. And then we thought it's a little bit insensitive to start talking about debt and savings when people can barely put food on the table. So what we decided to do is to change tack a little bit, talk about savings by all means, but also give consumers little hints and tips on how to build financial resilience during difficult times. I don't believe that this is the end of airborne diseases. I think we're going to be seeing more in the future. So basically, what we are saying to people is please prepare yourself.
Absolutely.
And some of the lessons that we've learned during this lockdown, we are hoping that they will take it into their future and make sure that they never find themselves in this situation again. So the entire month's activities is built around, how to build this financial resilience, how to shop smarter, how to save while shopping. Saving is not necessarily just putting money in the bank. You could actually save by changing your shopping habits. That's just one example.
On the shopping habits. Do you think that women have a different relationship with money? Are we more emotional when it comes to our purchases, or is that a myth?
I, I don't think it's a myth. I actually think, look, we've come a long way. Remember, back in the day, women stayed at home, husbands went out to work, and they primarily didn't concern themselves too much about money. I mean, the husband was providing, he would provide for the children. Everything was sort of really a pattern that they followed for centuries. Okay. And then, of course, women became liberated and we started working. And suddenly, we now have a relationship with our own money. So initially, women felt that, and I see it a lot in my clients as well. They kind of shy to admit that they want to be interested in money. It's almost sort of it's a male domain. We want to move away from being in the male domain, so we kind of leave it to firstly our fathers when we're not married, and then our husbands while we are married, and then when we become widowed, we tend to turn to our sons, thinking that they can make all the correct decisions for us. But it doesn't need to be like that. I think it's time women took control over their finances, and I'm starting to see it more and more. So when I discuss financial affairs with clients, I prefer to have the couple there. I think it's equally important for the wife to know what's going on, even if she's a housewife. But I don't think that women, I think women are not shying away from talking about money now as they used to in the past. I think they're starting to realize that, look, I work hard, this is my money, and maybe I need to take control over it. And I think that's brilliant. That's what we should be doing.
For sure. I noticed we were speaking about social media earlier, but I noticed last week actually a young woman had tweeted something about that she likes to spend her money in a certain way, and she loves the luxuries, but she hides those from her husband. And I thought to myself, firstly, in a COVID crisis, we shouldn't be boasting about spending on luxuries. But secondly, if it's your money, you should feel empowered to spend it the way that you see fit. Obviously within reason. I mean, don't go splurging your money and going crazy. But why is it that we need to defer to men for the best financial advice?
I think why women still hide their spending habits from their husbands, because again it goes back to what we were taught in the past, that it's the man's domain. So we almost feel guilty to spend money, especially if you've got a husband who's very careful with money. And look, I can identify with that, because I have a husband who comes from a very old school. As far as he's concerned, you do not spend until you've earned it. You do not spend until you've saved it. So I remember doing that early in our marriage. I mean, I would buy something, and I know it was a little bit extravagant, and I used to feel a little bit badly about it. And then I kind of, hushed over what the price was. I wouldn't lie openly, but I'd say, it was on sale. No, it wasn't very expensive. So I can understand.
50 Rand, and it was actually 59 Rand. It's like little details.
Absolutely. And look, for me, I have this obsession with nice crockery. So, and you do know that crockery does not come cheap. So he couldn't understand why I would spend so much on crockery. So I can understand that. I can understand why women do things like that. On the other hand, you get men who are equally extravagant and, and are reckless with their spending. So I think, the door swings both ways.
I know some people who have blown their Christmas money, stuff like that, on nice toys for themselves. So
absolutely. Boys and their toys.
Absolutely. It's a stereotype. So when it comes to women and money, what do you think the best advice would be around how to handle money? What, besides the budgeting, the usual advice? Because I think we're told that, but how many of us are actually sitting down with a budget and working it out every month? How many of us know where all our money goes?
Sure.
Men and women.
So the one thing that I will say to women is, a man is not a financial plan. You have got to have your own financial plan for several reasons. Even if you're a housewife, you need to know how much of money is coming in and how much of money is going out, because there will come a day when you are going to be alone. Either your marriage is going to end, or death will definitely take your partner away. And on average, women do live longer than men. So I think that, if you're not in employment, all the more reason why you should have a relationship with the family finances, because you need to know what's going on. But when you are also part breadwinner, and oftentimes women are bringing home more money than the men are, I think it's equally important for you to have equal say as to what happens to that money. And I also believe that aside from the planning that you do with your husband, you need to make sure that your own financial plan is in place and is constantly being looked at. I think it's very, very important. This is why people become vulnerable when they lose their partners, they lose their spouses. And there are any number of people out there that are willing to come and give you advice, that may not necessarily be the right advice. So I always maintain that a woman needs to be on top of money matters in the family. And the other reason I believe that is that this is what the children will see. Children learn by example. If they see the mother in charge, doing things correctly, asking the right questions, And we all know that, most couples don't argue until they're talking about money. And, I've always maintained that if poverty comes through the front door, love definitely goes out the window. So I firmly believe that women need to be on top of it. There's no such thing as, and I often hear this, I'm useless with money. I think that's hogwash. It's a learned habit. You just need to pay attention. And now there is absolutely no excuse, because social media is full of information. The media is full of information. I mean, you cannot open a newspaper without seeing a finance section. So what is the excuse? It's not rocket science. All you need to do is read. And if you read up, there's a lot you can learn. So I would urge every single woman to take charge of her finances, or even the family finances if the husband doesn't have time, or worse still, isn't capable of doing it.
Absolutely. And part of taking care of your finances and your financial future would be having a will in place, because so many people don't think about having a will and what provisions will be made for the children once they're no longer around. Where do the children go if the husband also passes away? Or
absolutely,
or making sure that your husband has a will, because if he passes away and he's left nothing to the family, then you could be booted out of your house.
So I'll tell you the other reason why it's important to have a will. Oftentimes people say, but I don't have any assets. And that's not correct. You do have a banking account. You may have a pension fund. You may have life insurance policies. So those are assets. Those are things that will come in after your death. And I think it's important that you pen down what your wishes are. And that's exactly what a will is. It's a simple document saying to the people left behind, this is what I own, this is what I owe, and this is whom I would like it to go to. That is, in simple English, a will. So nothing complicated. And a will can be a one-pager. You don't need more than that. As long as you've appointed an executor or an executrix, as long as you've pointed them in the right direction as to what you want done, in other words, your bequests and who you are bequeathing what to, and as long as it is signed in your presence, as long as you sign it in the presence of two competent witnesses, each page needs to be signed in full and dated. That's a will.
And then what about living wills? I see a lot of people are talking about living wills, and now with COVID, everyone's thinking about immortality, and I think a living will is another aspect of the will story.
Absolutely, I fully agree. The thing is, and again, I've had first-hand experience of that. I had a father who had a debilitating stroke, and they did resuscitate him, but he lay as a vegetable for 14 months. He did not have a living will. The doctors at the time, after the resuscitating, they started the tube feeding. And once that starts, you can't stop it. So for all intents and purposes, he was being fed, he was being medicated, but he just lay there, totally unable to move, talk, or swallow. So, I often wondered, had he had a living will, could we have spared him those 14 months of, it must have been absolute torture for him. So yes, a living will is very important, and you need to be very specific. It's not just about mechanical interventions. I think it's also about, feeding. I think you not think, this is what I've done in my living will. You can actually say that I do not want to be artificially fed. I just kind of want to be left in a corner to go peacefully. Because you really don't want to, yes, the intervention will keep you alive, but at what cost? At what cost? That's the question.
Do you think that women are more risk averse when it comes to their investments and how they treat money?
I wouldn't say they risk averse. I'd say that women are a little more cautious. And I speak from my own experience. I'm cautious about where I put my money. I'd hate to think that I could lose some of it. It was very difficult to make that money. So I don't think it's risk averse so much as being cautious. And I think a lot has to do with age as well. Remember that oftentimes in their younger years, women do spend more, and not unnecessarily so. You must remember, we are nurturers. We tend to want to give the best to our children. We are not generally the savers in the house. We generally leave that to our husbands to do. Because we're more interested in ensuring that our kids have what they want, that they eat what they want, make sure that they get to school and that kind of a thing. So that's where we tend to spend our money. So what happens is, by the time those duties are over and we can actually save, we are older, and then we become a little bit nervous. Oh my God, if there is a market correction, what's going to happen to my money? So I don't think we're risk averse. I think we are more cautious than men are.
We spoke during the Savings Month conversation about just the ways that older generations treated money, and how younger people aren't either being taught the right way, or they are ignoring the advice of their elders. So you mentioned shopping earlier. What advice do you, or rather, what lessons do you think that we should be taking from our elders in our treatment of money and our relationships?
So back in the day, people never bought until they could afford it. So for instance, if you need a new washing machine, you would save for 6, 8, 10 months. And then when you have that cash, you will go out and buy it. What's happening today? There's no need to save. Why? Because credit is so easily available. You can walk into any store. You can walk into any store and you can buy what you want instantly. That's instant gratification, which is what we've come to live on. And then we spend the next 24 months paying that off. And eventually, once we've paid that off, it's now cost us double what it would have cost us had we been patient enough to save first. So my advice is, know exactly where your money is going. Know exactly what you're spending it on. Yes, you may have that new item now, but think about the charges, think about the interest, all of the other add-ons into that monthly installment that you are paying. Think and sometimes defer these decisions. It's very exciting when you see something the first time, oh, I must have it. But if you defer it even for a day, that longing for it does diminish a little bit. And unless it is something that you absolutely require, those are the kind of decisions we want people to make. We want them to start thinking with their heads and not their hearts. And even when you shop, be smart in your shopping choices. We had, one of our speakers on the webinars that we had said that it doesn't make sense to buy a top quality jacket for a child who's going to outgrow it in a couple of months' time. But as an adult, it doesn't matter that you buy the top quality jacket. You're going to be wearing it forever because your size won't change. So, it's little things like that. The thing that lockdown has taught all of us is there's no need to go into the shops every single day. if you plan your meals, if you plan the week's meals, you just need to shop once. There's a saving in fuel, number one. Secondly, you use up what you buy because you know that you can't go back into the shops. So it's these little things that we are hoping will build resilience with our population. And again, people must now have this mindset. I don't ever want to be where I was when lockdown started and I didn't have an income. The only reason, they must be able to say, the only reason I can survive this is if I have an emergency fund. So we are hoping that this is what all of this has taught people, and that they will never ever take their relationship with money for granted again. And we are also hoping that these habits that they formed last and gets passed on to their children. And this is the only way we can start building a nation of savers. And this is what will save us in the long run.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Prem. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you.